In this morning's ceremony, dedication for the historical marker for the Machu family cemetery. The story of the Machu family in Texas wouldn't be complete if it not include the relationship to the unity of the Brethren Church, and we're so pleased to have Pastor James Hale of Taylor Brethren Church and Larry Zopsik of the Granger Brethren Church with us. Here from the Williamson County Historical Commission is Executive Director and Williamson County Museum, Mickey Ross. And from the Granger City Council, we have Jill Kotz and Monica Stojanik. And also we have Kerry Weber. He's retired from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. He's the one that worked with my daddy, and I think it was Truett Beard and Anton Mahu relocating the cemetery. And at this, I'd like to recognize officers of the Mahu Cemetery Association. I'm the president, and vice president is Johnny Mahu, treasurer Melanie Huber, secretary Marianne Ripple, reporter Debbie Hagg. And we have Rules and Regulation Committee, and we have Nominating Committee, and appreciate all the help all this committee and officers have helped so far this year.
That the very first checks came here to America, these immigrants took with the utmost seriousness their responsibility to their new homeland and the cause of freedom. In this very cemetery are the remains of Texans born on Czech soil who came to America in search of a better life. The ink had hardly dried on their naturalization papers before their adopted nation sent them back to the homeland of their ancestors, wearing the uniform of the American doughboy and fighting on the battlefields of World War I. Martin Vitek was one such soldier. Naturalized as a U.S. citizen in 1909, he served in Austria in 1917 and 18 as a U.S. Army surveillance officer in a war with the land of his birth. After the war, Mr. Vitek came back to Granger to resume his life here in America, hopping right back on that tractor that he left in the field when he got his draft notice. Also buried here are those who fought with the American forces in the Pacific and European theaters of World War II, and then in Korea, and then in Vietnam. And those of Czech descent would continue to serve and to fight whenever their nation called upon them. It probably took more than we could ever know for our ancestors to leave their beloved homeland and their family members to come here. The story has been told and retold so many times and in so many dialects that it has finally become but one story, the story of America, a nation founded and built by those yearning to be free from political oppression and religious persecution. With God's grace, God's guidance, God's inspiration, our immigrant ancestors built a new life and a new home right here, working to make this a more perfect nation, instilling the values of freedom in their children and their children's children, and, when necessary, taking up arms when their nation called to go to strange and distant shores to fight for others who deserved to be free. In a moment, I will offer a prayer of remembrance for those who have come before us, those who have dreamed greatly and struggled greatly, including those who have paid the ultimate price, so that you and I might live free. Our prayer will conclude with the Lord's Prayer in both Czech and English, and I invite you to say the prayer in the language of your choice. The words are printed in your program. After this ceremony concludes, you are invited to stroll among the stones, if you haven't already, and honor in your own way those who have lived and loved and fought and given their hearts and lives with such passion and conviction.
The Mahu family has a very long history here in the city of Granger. I hope that all of you had an opportunity to read the wonderful history in the newspaper that Darwin and Nancy helped put together. I learn something new every time I read about the Mahu history and what they contributed to this community, the city of Granger. Of course, Granger has changed a lot since Pavel and Rosina settled near here. But one thing has not changed about Granger. There are still Mahus living here. And apparently, we don't plan to be going anywhere soon. I want to call upon representatives from the city now, if they'll come forward and share a few words with us.
Good morning. My name is Jill Cox, and I'm with the City Council in the City of Granger. I want to congratulate the Mahu family and all the people that have worked very, very hard on the dedication of this historical marker. In addition, the beautiful array of historical information on the tables that people have worked very hard on are quite interesting and informative, and I appreciate on behalf of the City of Granger the opportunity to be here and to have placed this beautiful historical marker. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Monica Stajonic. I'm with the City of Granger City Council. I'm very proud to be here today for a lot of reasons. First of all, it's just a great celebration. Secondly, I have family members buried here. I'm also here with the Taylor Czech Chorus, and it's just a great thing to be here. And I want to thank everyone for all the hard work. This started a really long time ago, back in '76, getting everything moved, which must have been a great endeavor. And since then, this cemetery has been put together and built. It's very nicely maintained, and it's something to be very proud of. And I'm very proud to be here today also. Thank you.
Brother Jimmy, I want to thank you for your words, your somber words about honoring those who are buried here. A cemetery is both a somber occasion, but I want to tell you that it can also be a lot of fun to be out here. When I come out here with the family on a work day, we joke around, we laugh, we bond in ways that you wouldn't believe. But there's no better time to be in a cemetery than when you're alone. I'm a historian. I taught history for 15 years in the classroom, and I'm going to tell you just a little bit about where my love of history began. But first, let me just tell you, I love cemeteries. When I was in the SPJST Youth Club, our sponsors, Norma Kavanaugh and Debbie Marburger's mom, Rita Marburger, used to bring us out to cemetery to do marker rubbings with charcoal. And do those, and we learned a lot, you know, but we also laughed a lot while we were doing it at some of the things we read on those markers. I was out here yesterday morning at 7:30 in the morning, just spot checking with my weed eater. Isn't it nice? Well, we got some green grass, didn't we, in August in Texas. What's wrong with this picture? And beautiful weather today, thank you, Lord. There's some real funny tombstones out here, and I hope I don't offend anybody. This may be some of your relatives, so just know I mean this in the best possible way. There's one over here. The guy has on his headstone a hand with a finger pointed up. I guess that's in case those who were taking care of him didn't know the way up. I don't know what that one's about. I like that one. That's one of my favorites. I was in England one year with my friend Dwight, and we stopped at a cemetery in Wales. You know, their cemeteries are really old. There were tombstones there from the 1300s. I'm like, oh my God, Dwight, look at this one. 1348. Ooh, another one, 1348. 1348, 1348. What's with the third? The Black Death. Oh my God, that's right. That's when it hit this part of Europe. And one guy, his headstone read, is my favorite one. He said, "To all who passeth here, won't you bend your knee, glance to my left and say a prayer for she who had to live with me." I turned to Dwight and I said, "Dwight, do you think he actually wrote that, or was she standing over him and made him write it?" I was in 7th grade. Do you know what the social studies subject is in 7th grade? Quiz time.
Texas history.
Texas history. What a better time to have the experience I had. Folks around here weren't too happy about it. I'll let Carrie tell you about that. when the time came. They found out about the dam, they found out about the lake, and then they found out they were going to have to move their ancestral homelands. They weren't too happy about it. But my grandfather, the good-natured soul that he was, took on that responsibility along with his other relatives, and then he did something really interesting. He brought his young grandson out here, who was in 7th grade. And I don't know why he did it. I know he had his reasons. Whether it was to instill in me an appreciation for who these people were and what they had accomplished, whether it's because he wanted to spend time with me on a Saturday morning, if he wanted me to see the process, the bagging that was going on by the Corps of Engineers, that was fascinating to this 7th grader. But it was that event that instilled in me a love of history, and I still have that love of history today, because the past, people, I tell you, there is power in the past. One need only look at what's written on that marker. I'm sure Darwin will tell you it's frustrating. You don't get to put everything you'd like to put on the marker. I learned that lesson while working on the Granger Brethren Church marker with Elsie Barton. We had a long history we wanted to share, but you don't get to put everything you want on the marker. It has 4 sides. But when I look at what's been put on this marker, I realize something. The Historical Commission is actually pretty smart. Because when you read what they put on here, it's the essentials. There is power in history. And the power in history here is what it teaches us for how to live our lives today and how we need to think about tomorrow. In particular, the last line. The last line sets a high expectation for us Mahus, and that's why I'm so glad there are so many young people here today. That's why I wanted to make sure there was young people participating in the program today. We've got a high bar that's been set. When I read about what Pavel did, lost both his parents while he was still a young man, and then took on the responsibility of still joining the Austrian army, and then got married and decided to go on this long voyage overseas that he almost died on, by the way, and settled here, I'm sure without much money, but managed to acquire enough land to give a school to his Czech community, the Moravia School. And then there's that parable. If you're a Mahu, you know what parable I'm talking about. We tell it to our children, and our children tell it to their children, and they tell it to their children. We tell that parable because there's power in history. You know the story. Pavel was making his way home from Granger one day, pulling his wagon. He comes across a woman on the side of the road. She's there with her kids and the body of her deceased husband. And she'd been looking for a place to bury him, and she'd been turned down over and over again, and Pavel said, "No problem, follow me. Got a piece of land over here surrounded by roads. You can bury your husband there." And so began the Mahu Cemetery. We tell that parable. We pass it down in our family, that oral tradition, because there's power in history. History has the power to change us. It changes our nature. It changes our hearts. It changes our course. It tells us, you don't want to go that way. History has shown that's a bad way to go. That's what history does. It tells us a better way to live. Not to bicker, not to be petty, not to judge people by the color of their skin or their religion or their political persuasion, because we have no idea today why that woman could not find a place to bury her husband. What was it about it? Was it the color of the skin? Was it their religious background? Was it their political persuasion? Today we still don't know. That man is buried in this cemetery as one of the unknowns, and you know what? I like it that way. I like it that way. Because even in that there is a lesson. Because that stranger buried here could be anybody. And so we tell that story to our children to teach us to love thy neighbor, to give to the one who asks, and to share with one another. The legacy that Pavel Mahu leaves us is not about money. No, it wasn't money. It was something much more powerful. And every day that I come out here with family to work at this cemetery, I see that legacy continuing. Pavel Mahu didn't know a stranger on the side of the road. He saw a woman in need. My grandfather never knew a stranger. My gosh, those of you who knew Alvin Mahu, you know that's true. Whether he was on Congress Avenue in Austin, Texas, or driving down Main Street in that bouncy Buick across the railroad track, he was waving at every Tom, Dick, and Harry, and the hand would come out and say, "Hey, how you doing?" And if somebody needed something, he was there to do it. And the Mahus are still like that. When Darwin took upon himself the job of getting this historical marker, it was more than just telling that story again. Darwin Mahu wanted to leave a legacy for the whole family, so that every time we walk through that gate, we're reminded of this family and its important story. And now we share it with everyone in the community, to stop for the stranger on the side of the road, someone you don't even know. I'm very proud of this family. I'm very proud to be out here with them on Saturdays. It was nice, learning about all that in the 1970s when the time came. Carrie Weber's going to talk to you about that in a second. It was nice, being raised in the SPJST, whose lodge home now sits on a block that was given to the SPJST Lodge 20 by Rosina after Pavel died. It was nice, being raised in the Brethren Church where Pavel Mahu had a hand in that. Yeah, it was nice. But more than nice, it is the core of who I am. The Czech people came here, weren't able to find insurance from the local American firms, so they bonded together to form their own fraternal insurance company to care for each other, the SPJST. That's what they did, those poor immigrants. Coming together. Only I would decide to move back home after 25 years and start a new lawn in the worst drought in Texas history. But there I was trying to start a new lawn in 2011, but worse than I was this family trying to keep this cemetery alive during the worst drought in Texas, Henry. And watching my Uncle Alvin come pick up the water tanks at our house once or twice a week to bring water out here because the city had not gotten water out here yet. That's right. We do have water now, thank you, city. But in 2011 we did not. And I don't think we lost a tree, did we, Alvin? That's how much this family cared. But you do see some effects of the drought today. You see them in the leaning headstones. And I ask those of you who have immediate family members buried out here to consider what can be done about those. And finally, I ask those of you who are leaving here today to look around at the perpetual care that's been done for this cemetery, and if you are able, consider making a donation to the cemetery's perpetual care fund. We appreciate that. Carrie, would you share a few words for us about the relocation?
Terry, I want to thank you for putting me on the program right after you. He's always a hard act to follow. For those of you who don't know me, I want to share a little bit of my history of working on this project and in this county. I was originally born in Fredericksburg, Texas, and I didn't know it, but I had relatives here, and the cemeteries around here are full of them, if you know which ones to look in. Like around Dessau and Wahlberg, in those areas. Well, after A&M, graduating from A&M, I was looking for a job, and I found one with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and it was one of the most exciting careers I could have ever had. I worked for them from 1976 until just 2 years ago. 2 years ago, July, I retired, and I'm really enjoying that. But one of my stops during that career was in 1980 in the little town of Granger, Texas. And I didn't know anyone here. I was really looking forward to coming here and to meeting everyone, I thought. And there were a lot of people to meet and a lot of words to say, but I have never moved away. And that's the thing I feel best about, is I'm still living here, and I enjoy it, and I enjoy all of you and all the other folks that I know in the county. The Great Depression and World War II were some of the worst times that happened to this country. A lot of people who are young don't remember it. I was a baby boomer myself, so I wasn't born until after everybody came home, but it was a time when the country was really changing. People were trying to recover from everything they had suffered during those two events. And that devastation and change brought about started to manifest itself in the care of our cemeteries, or rather lack of care in our cemeteries. And it was visible. A lot of, plus Dwight Eisenhower and some of the later presidents started or embarked on a lot of public works projects. Because some of those cemeteries were forgotten, they weren't being cared for, no one knew where they were, and they started finding them in the construction of these public work projects, like the interstate highway system, moving the roads, building lakes. Most of the lakes that we know of were built in the 1960s here in Texas, and that was a time when people started waking up and realizing, hey, we've got people we need to be concerned about, people who passed away before us. And so they started forming these cemetery associations, and that was a good thing, because I know, like several of my own family cemeteries, they were lost. They were grown up in woods, headstones were broken, stolen, pushed over, and the formation of the cemetery association for that particular one that I'm thinking about is basically what rescued it. And they went through a similar process as has been done here. They researched the history of it, they put a historical marker on it. Now it has perpetual care. It's not without problems. Funding and resource volunteer labor always needed to keep those going. When the Granger Lake project was started here in the 1970s, naturally that was one of the first objectives, was to find any cemeteries that would be adversely impacted by construction of the project. And Alban Machu was already the president of the Granger Cemetery, the Machu Cemetery Association. I checked back with someone I worked with during that time, and he wasn't sure exactly when the association was formed. I don't know if y'all have any written records or history on that, perhaps some bookkeeping records, things to establish exactly when that was. But he had worked very hard to make sure that his family cemetery was being taken care of. He never let it fall into a state of ruin, which happened to so many of them across the nation. And he seized the opportunity of the relocation to try to achieve the best possible outcome for all the concerned family members associated with the cemetery. Ken Howell, who happened to be the government inspector for the cemetery relocations and is still one of my best friends, he still thinks of Alban as a real joy to work with. He worked hand in hand with him, and Ken said that he was always a gentleman, very considerate of others as they worked through the delicate process of finding a new cemetery site and relocating the remains. Terry mentioned that he was somewhat a witness to that work while it was going on, but for those of you who have never been involved in it, it is a very sensitive matter, and people are very interested and have a lot of ideas about how things need to be done. So it's a process that really needs a lot of sensitivity working through. I didn't meet Alban until the 1980s when I moved here, and I just became a friend with him. He was an easy guy to meet. It's like Terry says, he think everybody he met was a friend. He didn't have any strangers. And I was looking for guys on my side back then, because most of them, they're going, government man, you know. And fortunately, they didn't have any guns with them, but it takes a while to build trust with people. And I was glad to have at least one on my side. But one day I asked him about the cemetery, because I was interested in history, and he told me the parable, and I was going, wow, that's something. But I could see in his eyes as he was telling me that he had the passion of a simple man that really cherished his heritage. And I was thinking, man, he and I are alike in that respect, you know. And so from then on, whenever I needed anything or had any questions for him, I just really felt comfortable calling him up, and he'd help all the time if he could. He had an appreciation for good land stewardship. I don't know where he got it. You know, it's not something that we teach our children today in schools. It's something that you have to learn by family tradition. And that was apparent to me when his close work in our natural resource management efforts with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and for all that, and then also the work that he did with us during the cemetery relocations. He received a Take Pride in America award in the 1990s. That award is still up here on the table of photographs and other things, and I'm glad and proud to be able to count him as one of the best people that I ever worked with, and I miss him dearly. The Machu Cemetery lives on as a place where families can gather and honor those who made possible the opportunities we enjoy today in life. But our dedication of this marker is more than a simple memorial to the past. It's a commendation to the Machu family for their dedication to preserving their family history and heritage, which is also a part of our nation's ever-growing history and heritage. It's also a challenge to present and future generations to continue the tradition of caring, remembering, and praying for those who lived in the past and for those yet to be born. I think Alban E. Machu would have wanted it that way. Thank you.
It is a wonderful turnout, and listen, we're informal here. If you need a bottle of water, they're over here, and iced tea. If you're in the sun and want to relocate, please do. You're not frozen to where you are. I'm going to call now on Mickey Ross to come up, and after Mickey speaks, if any of you have a short 1 to 2 minute story specifically about the Machu Cemetery that you would like to share, and we're going to hold you to that time limit. We'd love for you to come up and share a story if you have one. Mickey Ross, who I had the pleasure of meeting only yesterday in person, but have been talking to through email for some time, worked with Darwin on the historical marker, and I want to ask her to say a few words.
Thank you, Terry. Can you hear me? I'm shorter than all the rest of you, so hard to get that in the right place. First of all, I want to congratulate you all on the excitement of this day and what this day means, and I want to thank Darwin, because I'm sure when he started this process he wondered who this crazy woman was and what she was doing, because I had no idea what I was doing. It is quite a process. It is quite an accomplishment to have this marker. Not everyone who asks for a marker gets a marker. And I actually had someone in my office this week who came in with a piece of paper with a couple of things on it and a check and said, I'm here to get a historical marker. And I said, well, it doesn't work quite that way. And she said, well, I thought if something was 100 years old, you just got that marker. Darwin's here to tell you it doesn't quite happen like that. And I was new to the program when he came in, so I'm very proud of the fact that this is my first marker that I've seen all the way through the system. It takes a long time. It takes a lot of work. And running the museum is more than a full-time day job. This is an extra part of it. So it's a great tribute to Darwin and to the family to have the marker here. A couple of things I want to talk about just in terms of the county and the history that's here. We are blessed in Williamson County to be in the top 10 of number of markers in the entire state. When I moved here 13 years ago, I thought, oh, Williamson County, I don't know anything about it. What happened here? It wasn't around during the Republic of Texas times. It didn't do that. We didn't have Civil War battles or things. What happened here? I have since learned in those 13 years that everything that happened in Texas history has a root here in Williamson County. My family in other parts of the state say you're crazy, but every day something comes up that has to do with a bigger picture here in the United States, and there's a Williamson County connection. So we are very fortunate here, and I think it's a great tribute. I actually think now at this point we're number 5 or number 6 in the most number of historical markers in the entire state out of 254 counties. So not only do we have all those great things that happen here, but we like to tell that story and get that story out. So it is wonderful to be here and to learn about the family. I'm going to put on that executive director hat for just a moment and talk to you all about not only your responsibility to your family here, but your responsibility to the rest of us. I've learned lots of things already this morning that I had no idea about. You're one of the best kept secrets in the county. Obviously, this is the largest marker dedication I've been to, so you're not a secret, your family's not a secret, and your story's not a secret, but the rest of the county doesn't know all this. It's my job to tell the story of Williamson County to everybody that comes in here. There are 500,000 people in our county now. I'm working on meeting them one at a time so that they know your stories and these sort of things. Terry couldn't have said it any better. The past is so powerful. It makes us who we are. It creates the people that we become, and we honor that all over this county through our historic cemeteries and historical markers and the events that happen. But I can't do my job if you all don't continue to share those stories with me. It's fabulous to be here and to have that information in Granger, but we want to have those stories as well, because that's the only way I can get that information out to those 500,000 people. We look forward. When I became the director 3 years ago, my primary goal was that within 10 years, we would have a historical museum spot in every town in the county. Can't wait to visit with the Granger City Council. I visited with a couple of your other members before about that possibility of having your own historical museum here in town that we can help with. And it's important to us to do that. Although I sit in Georgetown, I am a representative of the entire county, and we really want to be able to share your story with everybody. Cemeteries like this are so important. We do have cemeteries being worked on in other parts of the county. We do have youth groups that are doing that and cemetery associations, because they all have the same problems that we've talked about in terms of not being taken care of and not having anybody that's able to do that. You guys are so fortunate to have so many people working on your cemeteries, but there are a lot of the 250 cemeteries in this county that don't have that. So if you're interested in getting involved somewhere else or getting involved with sharing your story, please come and see me. Please let us know about your history so we can share it with everybody else. Again, thank you, Darwin, and I appreciate that he hasn't shot me at any point during this process when he's going, why isn't she getting this done? And I appreciate his patience and his help. It's been great to work with him. And thank you so much for all you all do to promote this county's history. And again, help me promote your story in other places. Thank you very much.
Mickey does a great job. If you're in Georgetown and you have not been to our county's museum, it's right across the courthouse, across from Austin Avenue, the Williamson Museum. It's something to see. There are quite a few photos in there from Granger's early days. I saw those yesterday. The website is also great, Mickey, and I'm looking forward to seeing the exhibit that's coming to the courthouse rotunda, is that right? On the Bosnian genocide. What a coup that is for the county to have that exhibit here. Would anybody like to share a story about the Machu Cemetery?
I work with the Williamson County Historical Commission, and a number of years ago I photographed this cemetery and uploaded every gravestone to a website called findagrave.com. We're always looking for obituaries to go with the memorials and any other stories that you might have. and especially photographs, and I've seen all kinds of them out there that I'd love to see uploaded to that website. Thank you.
Hold on, I have to shake your hand. Thank you for that work. Thank you.
It's not my website.
Well, that was a lot of photographs.
That's ancestry.com.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I use that website a lot. And the obituaries are there, the photos of the tombstones. I've been doing something for my niece and nephew. I want to pass down to them the Lacine and Mahu history. And so I've been putting all these photos together in a story that I'm telling them about the family. And I'm putting in there the actual photograph of each deceased person's headstone and where they're located in that cemetery, so that if they ever want to go out to those cemeteries, they know exactly where to go. But that site has been very helpful. Well, it's time for the man of the hour. I'm going to ask Darwin to come up here because we are all grateful to Darwin for the work he's done acquiring this marker recognition for our cemetery, and he's going to take over now for the unveiling of the marker and the reading of the inscription.
Thank you, Terry. You've done a great job. I want to thank Mickey Ross and Bob Brinkman and all the members of the Texas Historical Commission for all the help they gave me in acquiring this marker. It was quite a challenge and a pleasure to work with the Williamson County Historical Association. Thank you very much, Mickey. First of all, I would like to thank all of you for coming out and helping us celebrate this historic occasion. I think that everyone of the Mahu family should be proud of our Mahu ancestry, our cemetery, and the recognition it is given from the Texas State Historical Commission. And I especially want to thank Terry Lucine for helping us in putting a dedication service together. Elvin Mahu, Terry, my wife Nancy, and I had a meeting a couple of months ago. We asked Terry if he would help us with this endeavor. Terry said he would be glad to help. Terry immediately started to put a program together. Before the meeting was over, a few hours later, Terry already had put together an outline of today's program, and he has not slowed down since. He has been working diligently, contacting people, using his expertise to produce today's dedication service and the bulletin. Not only that, he was here to help dig the hole and install the marker. Last Saturday, he was here with a push mower, mowing the grass with the temperature in the high 90s. I do not know if you all realize that because the writing on Pavel and Rosina's tombstone is almost impossible to read, but Rosina's name is not on the original tombstone. I contacted Paul at the Rockdale Memorial Company to see if Rosina's name could be placed on the original tombstone. He told me that he would have to contact the man who does the inscribing on tombstones. He then contacted the man, and the man told him that when the marble gets to be a certain age, it is no longer possible to engrave anything on it without damaging the stone. He told me that we could buy another headstone and inscribe both Pavel and Rosina's name on it. After he told me the price, I told him that that was something I would have to talk to the rest of the family about. And about an hour after I got off the telephone, I received a call from Vicki Ellison, and I'd like for Vicki Ellison to please stand now. I know she's here, but oh, sorry. Anyway, this is a story about what she did, but so y'all know who she is. Vicky, you can sit down now. Vicky Allison is the trailer representative of the Rockdale Memorial Company, and she told me that she would donate a new headstone for Pavel and Rosina. You could imagine how surprised I was, because Vicky has no ties to the Machu family. So I wanted to let you know how much the Machu family appreciates your generosity. Everybody, we'll take a look at our new headstone for Pavel and Rosina. I also want to express my deepest appreciation to all the people who helped to take care of the Machu Cemetery, because the Machu Cemetery is one of the best kept cemeteries in the area. I would love to name all the people who have worked diligently to take care of the cemetery, but it would be impossible to name each person individually, because in the 130 years that the cemetery has been in existence, there must be hundreds of people to have had a part in keeping up the Machu Cemetery. But it really looks beautiful, and I want to thank everybody who is constantly working to make this cemetery such a beautiful place. As a descendant of Pavel and Rosina Machu, I am extremely proud of my Czech and my Machu heritage. After I went into retirement, I joined some Czech organizations, and I started to attend the Moravia School Ex-Students Association, which were held every October. At the first meeting that I attended, Hedy Rizatsky Smerek stated that she thought that we should try to get a historical marker from Moravia School, and I agreed with her. So I was appointed chairman of a committee to investigate the possibility of obtaining a historical marker for Moravia School, which was a school for which Pavel and Rosina donated a 2-acre plot of land. Aside of donating the land and helping with building of the school, Pavel rode his horse around Granger and as far as Caldwell, where some of his friends lived, to acquire money with which to build a school. It was stated that the 2 or 3 day trip to Caldwell netted him less than $2. We dedicated the Moravia School historical marker on August 23rd, 2003. At the Machu reunion in 2010, I agreed to try to acquire a historical marker for the Machu Cemetery. It took me almost 3 years to get the marker. What I did not realize when we set the date for the dedication, that the Machu Cemetery historical marker will be 6 days short of being exactly 10 years since we dedicated the Moravia School Texas State historical marker. I looked it up a couple of nights ago, and I said, I can't believe that if we'd waited a week, it'd been almost on the same day, so 10 years later. I will now read the inscription which is inscribed on the Machu Cemetery historical marker. First, at the top of the marker is a circular medallion, the historic Texas Cemetery at the top of it, and the Texas Historical Cemetery at the bottom. And there's a tree branch and a Texas star in the middle of it. And below that, the inscription starts, and it goes, Machu Cemetery. Pavel and Rosina Trulica Machu, settled in Williamson County in 1878 and contributed to the agricultural development of the community. The cemetery began in 1883 when Machu helped a woman bury her husband who died during their journey. Machu offered to bury him on a 2-acre section of the Machu farm, located about 5 miles southeast of Granger. The first recorded burial was that of Katharina Safari in 1892. Burials include descendants of Pavel and Rosina, veterans and other citizens of the community. The cemetery was relocated to this site in 1976 before construction of the Lane Ford Dam. Members of the Machu family continue to maintain this historic cemetery. And below that we have inscribed Historic Cemetery 2011. Marker is property of the state of Texas. And I want to add, incidentally, I want to add to this, to the first person that was buried in the Machu cemetery, their name is not recorded, and that was simply because neither Pavel nor Rosina could read or write, so they didn't keep any records of who was buried at the cemetery. And possibly the woman couldn't read or write or tell them who she was, or I'm sure she told them who she was, but it has never been recorded. So anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Folks, we're going to ask that Darwin and Uncle Alvin go out to the marker now to unveil it. And I have some rules from the Granger City Police, who I spoke to yesterday. We cannot put a crowd of people on the county road. So if you want to take pictures, 1 or 2 of you at a time on the road, but we're going to have them go down there and unveil. We have wonderful Czech pastries and kolaches we want you to enjoy, and beverages, and we want you to stroll the cemetery grounds and enjoy yourselves. Thank you all so much for being